Thank you for joining us this evening for Episode 9 of The Unpleasant Profession of Jonathan Hoag, a science fantasy novella by American writer Robert A. Heinlein. In Episode 8, Teddy realizes that his nightmares may be more than just a coincidence, and the mirrors in their apartment make Cynthia and himself vulnerable to observation and abduction. He paints over all the visible mirrors and settles down to continue his watch over Cynthia. He also suspects that he and Cynthia have run afoul of devils, and that if Hoag is a devil, he's their kind of devil. Supposedly checking on his patient the next morning, Potbury makes a house call. In response to Potbury's inquiry about the painted-over mirrors, Teddy boasts that he has foxed him and uses the phrase, "the bird is cruel." Potbury covers his face with his hands. Pieces of the puzzle fall into the place for Teddy, and he attacks the doctor, capturing him and locking him in their bathroom. Teddy calls Hoag and insists that he come immediately to the apartment to confront Potbury. When the bathroom door was opened, Potbury had vanished, leaving behind his doctor's bag, half hidden under the bed. Hoag notices the bag, and Teddy, in his search of the contents, spies the only prescription bottle in the bag. It had clearly printed on the label, "Cynthia Randall." He opened it. Cynthia awakens and whispers the admonition to her husband, not to promise them anything. The bird is cruel, and she closes her eyes again. In our final episode, Teddy and Cynthia look to Hoag for answers. We may be surprised as we witness the revelation.
Chapter 9.
Your memory lapses are the key to the whole thing. If we knew what you do in the daytime, if we knew your profession, we would know why the Sons of the Bird are out to get you. More than that, we would know how to fight them, for they are obviously afraid of you.
Hoag turned to Cynthia.
What do you think, Mrs. Randall?
I think Teddy is right. If I knew enough about hypnotism, we would try that, but I don't. So scopolamine is the next best. Are you willing to try it?
If you say so, yes.
Get the kit, Teddy.
She jumped down from where she had been perched on the edge of his desk. He put a hand out to catch her.
You ought to take it easy, baby.
Nonsense. I'm all right now.
They had adjourned to their business office almost as soon as Cynthia woke up. To put it plainly, they were scared. Scared stiff, but not scared silly. The apartment seemed an unhealthy place to be. The office did not seem much better. Randall and Cynthia had decided to get out of town. The stop at the office was a penultimate stop for a conference of war. Hoag did not know what to do.
Just forget you ever saw this kit.
Randall prepared the hypodermic.
Not being a doctor, nor an anesthetist, I shouldn't have it. But it's convenient sometimes.
He scrubbed a spot of Hoag's forearm with an alcohol swab.
Steady now. There.
He shoved in the needle. They waited for the drug to take hold.
What do you expect to get?
I don't know. If we're lucky, his two personalities will knit. Then we may find out a lot of things.
A little later, Hoag's head sank forward. He breathed heavily. She stepped forward and shook his shoulder.
Mr. Hoag, do you hear me?
Yes.
What is your name?
Jonathan Hoag,
Where do you live?
602 Gotham Apartments.
What do you do?
I don't know.
Try to remember. What is your profession?
No answer. She tried again.
Are you a hypnotist?
No.
Are you a magician?
The answer was delayed a little, but finally came.
No.
What are you, Jonathan Hoag?
He opened his mouth, seemed about to answer, then sat up suddenly, his manner brisk and completely free of the lassitude normal to the drug.
I'm sorry, my dear, but this will have to stop for the present.
He stood up, walked over to the window and looked out.
Bad.
He glanced up and down the street.
How distressingly bad.
He seemed to be talking to himself rather than to them. Cynthia and Randall looked at him, then to each other for help.
What is bad, Mr. Hoag?
She did not have the impression analyzed, but he seemed like another person, younger, more vibrant.
Eh? Oh, I'm sorry. I owe you an explanation. I was forced to dispense with the drug.
Dispense with it?
Throw it off. Ignore it. Make it as nothing. You see, my dear, while you were talking, I recalled my profession.
He looked at them cheerily, but offered no further explanation. Randall was the first to recover.
What is your profession?
Hoag smiled at him almost tenderly.
It wouldn't do to tell you. Not now, at least.
He turned to Cynthia.
My dear, could I trouble you for a pencil and a sheet of paper?
Why, certainly.
She got them for him. He accepted them graciously and, seating himself, began to write. When he said nothing to explain his conduct, Randall spoke up.
Say, Hoag, look here.
Hoag turned a serene face to him. Randall started to speak, seemed puzzled by what he saw in Hoag's face, and concluded lamely.
Mr. Hoag, what's this all about?
Are you not willing to trust me?
Randall chewed his lip for a moment and looked at him. Hoag was patient and serene.
Yes, I suppose I am.
Good. I'm making a list of some things I want you to buy for me. I shall be quite busy for the next 2 hours or so.
You're leaving us?
You are worried about the sons of the bird, aren't you? Forget them. They will not harm you. I promise it.
He resumed writing. Some minutes later, he handed the list to Randall.
I've noted at the bottom the place where you are to meet me. A filling station outside Waukegan.
Waukegan? Why Waukegan?
No very important reason. I want to do once more something I am very fond of doing and don't expect to be able to do again. You'll help me, won't you? Some of the things I've asked you to buy may be hard to get, but you will try.
I suppose so.
Good.
He left at once. Randall looked from the closing door back to the list in his hand.
Well, I'll be Sin, what do you suppose he wants us to get for him? Groceries.
Groceries? Let me see that list.
They were driving north in the outskirts of the city, but with Randall at the wheel. Somewhere up ahead lay the place where they were to meet Hoag. Behind them, under the turtleback of the car, were the purchases he had directed them to make.
Teddy,
Yeah, kid?
can you make a U-turn here?
Sure, if I don't get caught. Why?
Because that's just what I'd like to do. Let me finish. We've got the car. We've got all the money we have in the world with us. There isn't anything to stop us from heading south if we want to.
Still thinking of that vacation? But we're going on it just as soon as we deliver the stuff to Hoag.
I don't mean a vacation. I mean go away and never come back. Now.
With $80 worth of fancy groceries that Hoag ordered and hasn't paid for yet? No soap.
We could eat them ourselves.
Caviar and hummingbird wings. We can't afford it, kid. We're the hamburger type. Anyhow, even if we could, I want to see Hoag again. Some plain talk and explanations.
That's just what I thought, Teddy, and that's why I want to cut and run. I don't want explanations. I'm satisfied with the world the way it is. Just you and me, and no complications. I don't want to know anything about Mr. Hoag's profession, or the Sons of the Bird, or anything like that.
He fumbled for a cigarette, then scratched a match under the instrument board while looking at her quizzically out of the corner of his eye. Fortunately, the traffic was light.
I think I feel the same way you do about it, kid, but I've got a different angle on it. If we drop it now, I'll be jumpy about the Sons of the Bird the rest of my life and scared to shave for fear of looking in a mirror. But there is a rational explanation for the whole thing. It's bound to be, and I'm going to get it. Then we can sleep.
She made herself smile and did not answer.
Look at it this way.
Randall was somewhat irritated.
Everything that has happened could have been done in the ordinary way without recourse to supernatural agencies. As for supernatural agencies, well, out here in the sunlight and the traffic, it's a little too much to swallow. Sons of the Bird. Rats.
She did not answer. He went on.
The first significant point is that Hoag is a consummate actor. Instead of being a prissy little milquetoast, he's a dominant personality of the first water. Look at the way I shut up and said, "Yes, sir," when he pretended to throw off the drug and ordered us to buy all those groceries.
Pretended?
Sure. Somebody substituted colored water for my sleepy juice. Probably done the same time the phony warning was stuck in the typewriter. But to get back to the point, he's a naturally strong character and almost certainly a clever hypnotist. Pulling that illusion about the 13th floor and Detheridge and Company shows how skillful he is, or somebody is. Probably used drugs on me as well, just as they did on you.
On me?
Sure. Remember that stuff you drank in Potbury's office? Some sort of a delayed action Mickey Finn.
But you drank it too.
Not necessarily the same stuff. Potbury and Hoag were in cahoots, which is how they created the atmosphere that made the whole thing possible. Everything else was little stuff, insignificant when taken alone.
Cynthia had her own ideas about that, but she kept them to herself. However, one point bothered her.
How did Potbury get out of the bathroom? You told me he was locked in.
I've thought about that. He picked the lock while I was phoning Hoag, hid in the closet, and just waited his chance to walk out.
She let it go at that for several minutes. Randall stopped talking, being busy with the traffic in Waukegan. He turned left and headed out of town.
Teddy, if you are sure that the whole thing was just a hoax and there are no such things as the suns, then why can't we drop it and head south? We don't need to keep this appointment.
I'm sure of my explanation, all right.
He skillfully avoided a suicide bent boy on a bicycle.
In its broad outlines, but I'm not sure of the motivation, and that's why I have to see Hoag. Funny thing, though, I don't think Hoag has anything against us. I think he has some reasons of his own and paid us 500 berries to put up with some discomfort while he carried out his plans. But we'll see. Anyhow, it's too late to turn back. There's the filling station he mentioned, and there's Hoag.
Hoag climbed in with no more than a nod and a smile. Randall felt again the compulsion to do as he was told, which had first hit him some hours before. Hoag told him where to go. The way lay out of the town and presently off the pavement. In due course, they came to a farm gate leading into pasture land, which Hoag instructed Randall to open and drive through.
The owner does not mind. I've been here many times on my Wednesdays. A beautiful spot.
It was a beautiful spot. The road, a wagon track now, led up a gradual rise to a treetop crest. Hoag had him park under a tree and they got out. Cynthia stood for a moment, drinking it in and savoring deep breaths of the clean air. To the south, Chicago could be seen, and beyond it and east of it, a silver gleam of the lake.
Teddy, isn't it gorgeous?
It is.
He turned to Hoag.
What I want to know is, why are we here?
Picnic. I chose the spot for my finale.
Finale?
Food first. Then, if you must, we'll talk.
It was a very odd menu for a picnic. In place of hearty foods, there were some dozens of gourmet specialties: preserved kumquats, guava jelly, little potted meats, tea made by Hoag over a spirit lamp, delicate wafers with a famous name on the package. In spite of this, both Randall and Cynthia found themselves eating heartily. Hoag tried everything, never passing up a dish, but Cynthia noticed that he actually ate very little, tasting rather than dining. In due course, Randall got his courage up to approach Hoag. It was beginning to appear that Hoag had no intention of broaching the matter himself.
Hoag,
Yes, Ed?
isn't it about time you took off the false face and quit kidding us?
I have not kidded you, my friend.
You know what I mean. This whole rat race that has been going on the past few days. You're mixed up in it and know more about it than we do. That's evident. Mind you, not that I'm accusing you of anything, but I want to know what it means.
Ask yourself what it means.
Okay, I will.
He launched into the explanation which he had sketched out to Cynthia. Hoag encouraged him to continue it fully, but when he was through, said nothing.
Well, that's how it happened, wasn't it?
It seems like a good explanation.
I thought so. But you've still got to clear some things up. Why did you do it?
Hoag shook his head thoughtfully.
I'm sorry, Ed. I cannot possibly explain my motives to you.
Damn it, that's not fair. The least you could.
When did you ever find fairness, Edward?
Well, I expected you to play fair with us. You encouraged us to treat you as a friend. You owe us explanations.
I promised you explanations, but consider, Ed, do you want explanations? I assure you that you will have no more trouble, no more visitations from the sons.
Cynthia touched his arm.
Don't ask for them, Teddy.
He brushed her off, not unkindly, but decisively.
I've got to know. Let's have the explanation.
You won't like it.
I'll chance it.
Very well.
Hoag settled back.
Will you serve the wine, my dear? Thank you. I shall have to tell you a little story first. It will be partly allegorical, as there are not the words, the concepts. Once there was a race, quite unlike the human race. Quite. I have no way of describing to you what they looked like or how they lived, but they had one characteristic you can understand. They were creative. The creating and enjoying of works of art was their occupation and their reason for being. I say art advisedly, for art is undefined, undefinable, and without limits. I can use the word without fear of misusing it, for it has no exact meaning. There are as many meanings as there are artists. But remember that these artists are not human, and their art is not human. Think of one of this race. In your terms, young, he creates a work of art under the eye and the guidance of his teacher. He has talent, this one, and his creation has many curious and amusing features. The teacher encourages him to go on with it and prepare it for the judging. Mind you, I am speaking in metaphorical terms, as if this were a human artist, preparing his canvases to be judged in the annual showing.
He stopped and said suddenly to Randall,
Are you a religious man? Did it ever occur to you that all this
he included the whole quietly beautiful countryside in the sweep of his arm.
might have had a creator? Must have had a creator?
Randall stared and turned red.
I'm not exactly a church-going man, but yes, I suppose I do believe it.
And you, Cynthia?
She nodded, tense and speechless.
The artist created this world after his own fashion and using postulates which seemed well to him. His teacher approved on the whole, but
Wait a minute. Are you trying to describe the creation of the world? The universe?
what else?
Damn it, this is preposterous. I asked for an explanation of the things that have just happened to us.
I told you that you would not like the explanation.
He waited for a moment, then continued.
The sons of the bird were the dominant feature of the world at first.
Randall listened to him, feeling that his head would burst. He knew with sick horror that the rationalization he had made up on the way to the rendezvous had been sheerest moonshine thrown together to still the fears that had overcome him. The sons of the bird, real, real and horrible and potent. He felt that he knew now the sort of race of which Hoag spoke. From Cynthia's tense and horrified face, she knew also. And there would never again be peace for either of them.
In the beginning, there was the bird.
Hoag looked at him with eyes free of malice, but without pity.
No, there was never the bird. They who call themselves sons of the bird, there are, but they are stupid and arrogant. Their sacred story is so much superstition. But in their way and by the rules of this world, they are powerful. The things, Edward, that you thought you saw, you did see.
You mean that?
Wait, let me finish. I must hasten. You saw what you thought you saw, with one exception. Until today, you have seen me only in your apartment or mine. The creatures you shadowed, the creature that frightened Cynthia, sons of the bird, all of them, Stoles and his friends. The teacher did not approve of the sons of the bird and suggested certain improvements in the creation. But the artist was hasty or careless. Instead of removing them entirely, he merely painted over them, made them appear to be some of the new creations with which he peopled his world, all of which might not have mattered if the work had not been selected for judging. Inevitably, the critics noticed them. They were bad art, and they disfigured the final work. There was some doubt in their minds as to whether or not the creation was worth preserving. That is why I am here.
He stopped, as if there were no more to say. Cynthia looked at him fearfully.
Are you?
He smiled at her.
No, Cynthia, I am not the creator of your world. You asked me my profession once. I am an art critic.
Randall would like to have disbelieved. It was impossible for him to do so. The truth rang in his ears and would not be denied. Hoag continued.
I said to you that I would have to speak to you in terms you use. You must know that to judge a creation such as this, your world, is not like walking up to a painting and looking at it. This world is peopled with men. It must be looked at through the eyes of men. I am a man.
Cynthia looked still more troubled.
I don't understand. You act through the body of a man?
I am a man. Scattered around through the human race are the critics, men. Each is the projection of a critic, but each is a man, in every way a man, not knowing that he is also a critic.
Randall seized on the discrepancy as if his reason depended on it, which perhaps it did.
But you know, or say you do. It's a contradiction.
Hoag nodded, undisturbed.
Until today, when Cynthia's questioning made it inconvenient to continue as I was, and for other reasons, this persona,
He tapped his chest.
Had no idea of why he was here. He was a man and no more. Even now, I have extended my present persona only as far as is necessary for my purpose. There are questions which I could not answer as Jonathan Hoag. Jonathan Hoag came into being as a man for the purpose of examining, savoring certain of the artistic aspects of this world. In the course of that, it became convenient to use him to smell out some of the activities of those discarded and painted over creatures that call themselves the sons of the bird. You two happened to be drawn into the activity, innocent and unknowing, like the pigeons used by armies. But it so happened that I observed something else of artistic worth while in contact with you, which is why we are taking the trouble for these explanations.
What do you mean?
Let me speak first of the matters I observed as a critic. Your world has several pleasures. There is eating.
He reached out and pulled off from its bunch a muscat grape, fat and sweet sugared, and ate it appreciatively.
An odd one, that, and very remarkable. No one ever before thought of making an art of the simple business of obtaining the necessary energy. Your artist has very real talent. And there is sleeping, a strange, reflexive business in which the artist's own creations are allowed to create more worlds of their own. You see now, don't you?
He smiled.
Why, the critic must be a man, in truth, else he could not dream as a man does. There is drinking, which mixes both eating and dreaming. There is the exquisite pleasure of conversing together, friend with friend, as we are doing. That is not new, but it goes to the credit of the artist that he included it. And there is sex. Sex is ridiculous. As a critic, I would have disregarded it entirely, had not you, my friends, let me see something which had not come to the attention of Jonathan Hoag, something which, in my own artistic creations, I had never had the wit to invent. As I said, your artist has talent.
He looked at them almost tenderly.
Tell me, Cynthia, what do you love in this world? And what is it that you hate and fear?
She made no attempt to answer him, but crept closer to her husband. Randall put a protecting arm around her. Hoag spoke then to Randall.
And you, Edward, is there something in this world for which you'd surrender your life and your soul, if need be? You need not answer. I saw in your face and in your heart last night as you bent over the bed. Good art, both of you. I have found several sorts of good and original art in this world, enough to justify encouraging your artist to try again. But there was so much that was bad, poorly drawn, and amateurish, that I could not find it in me to approve the work as a whole until I encountered and savored this, the tragedy of human love.
Cynthia looked at him wildly.
Tragedy? You say tragedy?
He looked at her with eyes that were not pitying, but serenely appreciative.
What else could it be, my dear?
She stared at him, then turned and buried her face on the lapel of her husband's coat. Randall patted her head.
Stop it, Hoag. You frightened her again.
I did not wish to.
You have. And I can tell you what I think of your story. It's got holes in it you can throw a cat through. You made it up.
You do not believe that.
It was true. Randall did not, but he went on bravely, his hand still soothing his wife.
The stuff under your nails. How about that? I noticed you left that out. And your fingerprints.
The stuff under my nails had little to do with the story. It served its purpose, which was to make fearful the sons of the bird. They knew what it was.
But what was it?
The ichor of the sons, planted there by my other persona. But what is this about fingerprints? Jonathan Hoag was honestly fearful of having them taken. Jonathan Hoag is a man, Edward. You must remember that.
Randall told him of their attempt to make his fingerprints. Hoag nodded.
I see. Truthfully, I do not recall it, even today, although my full persona knows of it. Jonathan Hoag had a nervous habit of polishing things with his handkerchief. Perhaps he polished the arm of your chair.
I don't remember it.
Nor do I.
Randall took up the fight again.
That isn't all, and that isn't half of it. What about the rest home you said you were in? And who pays you? Where do you get your money? Why was Cynthia always so damn scared of you?
Hoag looked out toward the city. A fog was rolling in from the lake.
There is little time for these things, and it does not matter, even to you, whether you believe or not. But you do believe. You cannot help it. But you have brought up another matter. Here.
He pulled a thick roll of bills from his pocket and handed them to Randall.
You might as well take them with you. I shall have no more use for them. I shall be leaving you in a few minutes.
Where are you going?
Back to myself. After I leave, you must do this. Get into your car and drive at once south through the city. Under no circumstances open a window of your car until you are miles away from the city.
Why? I don't like this.
Nevertheless, do it. There will be certain changes, readjustments going on.
What do you mean?
I told you, did I not, that the sons of the bird are being dealt with. They and all their works.
How?
Hoag did not answer, but stared again at the fog. It was creeping up on the city.
I think I must go now. Do as I have told you to do.
He started to turn away. Cynthia lifted up her face and spoke to him.
Don't go, not yet.
Yes, my dear?
You must tell me one thing. Will Teddy and I be together?
He looked into her eyes.
I see what you mean. I don't know.
But you must know.
I do not know. If you are both creatures of this world, then your patterns may run alike. But there are the critics, you know.
The critics? What have they to do with us?
One or the other, or both of you, may be critics. I would not know. Remember, the critics are men here. I did not even know myself as one until today.
He looked at Randall meditatively.
You may be one. I suspected it once today.
Am I?
I have no way of knowing. It is most unlikely. You see, we can't know each other, for it would spoil our artistic judgment.
But if we are not the same, then
That is all.
He said it, not emphatically, but with such a sound of finality that they were both startled. He bent over the remains of the feast and selected one more grape, ate it, and closed his eyes. He did not open them. Presently, Randall said,
Mr. Hoag?
no answer.
Mr. Hoag?
Still no answer. He separated himself from Cynthia, stood up, and went around to where the quiet figure sat. He shook him.
Mr. Hoag? But we can't just leave him there.
Randall insisted some minutes later.
Teddy, he knew what he was doing. The thing for us to do is follow his instructions.
Well, we can stop in Waukegan and notify the police.
Tell them we left a dead man back there on a hillside? Do you think they would say fine and let us drive on? No, Teddy, just what he told us to do.
Honey, you don't believe all that stuff he was telling us, do you?
She looked him in the eyes, her own eyes welling with tears.
Do you? Be honest with me, Teddy.
He met her gaze for a moment, then dropped his eyes.
Oh, never mind. We'll do what he said. Get in the car.
The fog, which appeared to have engulfed the city, was not visible when they got down the hill, and it started back toward Waukegan. Nor did they see it again after they had turned south and drove toward the city. The day was bright and sunny, as it had started to be that morning, with just enough nip in the air to make Hoag's injunction about keeping the windows rolled up tight seem like a good idea. They took the lake route south, skipping the loop thereby, with the intention of continuing due south until well out of the city. The traffic had thickened somewhat over what it had been when they started out in the middle of the morning. Randall was forced to give his attention to the wheel. Neither of them felt like talking, and it gave an excuse not to. They had left the loop area behind them when Randall spoke up.
Cynthia,
Yes?
we ought to tell somebody. I'm going to ask the next cop we see to call the Waukegan station.
Teddy!
Don't worry, I'll give him some stall that will make him investigate without making them suspicious of us. The old runaround, you know.
She knew his powers of invention were fertile enough to do such a job. She protested no more. A few blocks later, Randall saw a policeman standing on the sidewalk, warming himself in the sun and watching some boys playing sandlot football. He pulled up to the curb beside him.
Run down the window, Cyn.
She complied, then gave a sharp intake of breath and swallowed a scream. He did not scream, but he wanted to. Outside the open window was no sunlight, no cops, no kids, nothing. Nothing but a gray and formless mist, pulsing slowly as if with inhaled life. They could see nothing of the city through it, not because it was too dense, but because it was empty. No sound came out of it. No movement showed in it. It merged with the frame of the window and began to drift inside. Randall shouted.
Roll up the window.
She tried to obey, but her hands were nerveless. He reached across her and cranked it up himself, jamming it hard into its seat. The sunny scene was restored. Through the glass, they saw the patrolman, the boisterous game, the sidewalk, and the city beyond. Cynthia put a hand on his arm.
Drive on, Teddy.
Wait a minute.
He turned to the window beside him. Very cautiously, he rolled it down. Just a crack, less than an inch. It was enough. The formless gray flux was out there, too. Through the glass, the city traffic and Sunny Street were plain. Through the opening, nothing.
Drive on, Teddy, please.
She need not have urged him. He was already letting in the clutch with a jerk. Their house is not exactly on the Gulf, but the water can be seen from the hilltop near it. The village where they do their shopping has only 800 people in it, but it seems to be enough for them. They do not care much for company anyway, except their own. They get a lot of that. When he goes out to the vegetable patch or to the fields, she goes along, taking with her such woman's work as she can carry and do in her lap. If they go to town, they go together, hand in hand, always. He wears a beard, but it is not so much a peculiarity as a necessity, for there is not a mirror in the entire house. They do have one peculiarity, which would mark them as odd in any community, if anyone knew about it, but it is of such a nature that no one else would know. When they go to bed at night, before he turns out the light, he handcuffs one of his wrists to one of hers. The end.